WSTU, it is time for the forum, and here's your host, Pat Sacco.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Pat.
Halfway through July.
That's right. We're there.
We're there, man. We're getting there. 70-some days to the cruise. I think it's about 70 or
that far away.
Days. Yeah, it's been a long time.
What, do you take the summers off?
No, as it happened, we did because we went to Vegas. That screwed up our cruising time.
Uh-huh.
We'll talk about that later.
Man, it's a shame.
I have to say,
it's a hard life.
What are you going to do? I like cruising. I have a wife that's obsessed by it. So what can we do? I go with her. Yeah. And have a great time. Put my phone in the suitcase or in the safe for a whole week. I pay for it when I get home. I get punished with all the calls and everything. But at least I have that week of turning it off. It's like, to me, some people go to North Carolina to a cabin up on a mountain. Well, a cruise to me is like a cabin on a mountain. Do you take trips at all?
Oh, of course.
You just got to kind of get your head together a little bit.
I actually even just love living in Florida. To me, it's like living in vacation land.
Yeah, every weekend is like a vacation.
I had to pinch myself the first few years because I moved here from New Jersey. The first few years I lived here, I just, every time I had to travel back home, I was like, I didn't want to leave. I felt like I was leaving vacation.
I'm going up in the end of September for a class reunion. Must be like 400 years or something. And I'm dreading it. I don't want to go back there. I hate that.
Well, and especially in bad weather,
Well, August, it'll probably snow,
No.
just for me. All right. Before we start, I want to say good morning I run a bingo from October to April. One of the other things I do at a church. The church does not get the money. It all goes to outreach. That was the arrangement we made. And the women get upset because after April, I have some helpers that go up north and we can't do bingo. And they said, well, why can't you do it by yourself? Can't we have them? Can we get? I said, no, we're taking the summer off. So they know that we're waiting till October the 9th. And that's when we're going to start. Because my cruise is the first week of October. And they're going to be mad because they say, we missed a whole week already. Anyway, let me just run through Kay and Sheila and Kay and Sheila and Pat and Betty and Sandy and Maggie and who did I miss? There's several others. Anyway, Sheila always says, say hello. She watches the show. Sometimes she doesn't watch it. She goes in her car and listens to it.
Hi, Sheila.
They don't have a little radio at home. But a lot of people don't have radios anymore.
Most people listen on their phones.
Yeah, they listen on their phones. Anyway, okay. We don't have a Sheila here today. I have a Lisa Gang. And Lisa is the president and founder of a company called Cherub. Nonprofit called Cherub. Those cherubs are those little angels?
Yes.
The little babies with wings.
And there's a reason that it's called the Cherub Foundation.
Of course there is, and I want to know what it is.
Okay, so when my son was little, everyone said he looked like a cherub boy. And a lot of the children who have the condition he has, it's a neurological condition, have what's called hypotonia, which I know you know what it is, but I know not everybody does.
All right, explain hypotonia.
Hypotonia is low tone of the muscle. And so what happens is, when babies are little, they have those cute little round cheeks that you just want to squeeze them. But what happens when children with apraxia, a lot of them have hypotonia as well. And that's what my son has.
Now you said apraxia.
Yes.
Define that.
Apraxia is a neurologically based motor planning disorder. 64% of children with autism have coexisting apraxia.
And a person with apraxia, and sometimes people with strokes develop apraxia too.
Right.
They go to make a sound and they can't get their mouth in the position to make that sound or that word. It's stuck. It somehow we're not getting a message from the brain to the speech mechanism to execute.
It's almost like if you were to get a DVD player and a TV and you're me and you don't know how to hook them up together. Maybe they both work perfectly fine, but it's not working.
Right.
So, and every time they try to say the word, it may come out different. So there is this terminology called childhood apraxia speech, which ASHA uses to separate the adult from the childhood onset. But in reality, there hasn't been enough research. It's a rare disorder. It's categorized as a rare disorder because not enough people have it to do enough research, I guess, that we really don't know if there's a difference. And my son, Tanner, had fevers at 11 months, which that's when he had his regression. So he appeared to be developing normally previous to the fevers, which we kept bringing him to the doctor and the hospital. And we don't know what caused it. Nobody knows. I mean, we don't know why there's been the rise in these disorders, but a lot of these kids have sensory processing disorder and hypotonia, like I said, the motor planning.
Central processing, right?
Yeah. So, a lot of times if apraxia is suspected, it's important to take your child to a pediatric neurologist, developmental pediatrician, and then get them into speech therapy, occupational therapy. And we have a very high success rate. I was talking to you, Pat, about the importance of making sure that you get these kids up to speed academically so that they can thrive in the school systems.
Right. And they do.
And they do.
They can be very successful. Long story short, we had lunch with a high school senior and his mom. He's going to the University of Florida to major in either mechanical or mechanical engineering or aeronautical engineering. I said, what's the difference? He said, 3 college courses. I can have a dual major.
Wow.
So either he'll get into the NASA program, which he really wants to do, or he will go out and earn a lot of money, as a mechanical engineer. So that's he has ADHD, attention deficit disorder. He said to me, I've been fighting this all of my life. I'm now at a point where I really can focus. As hard as it is for me to do that, I've learned how to focus when I need to and stay on target, to stay on task. Great kid, brilliant, and yet with this disorder. I had a friend, a college professor, I'll define professor and teacher in a minute. He was a college professor, taught special education. He was dyslexic. His wife read articles to him while he was doing his PhD. His wife read textbooks to him while he was studying.
Wow.
He had a great mind to memorize, but he couldn't read those words. And he ended up being a professor teaching at a college.
I think we need to start looking more at the gifts that come sometimes with these different quote unquote impairments, because actually my brother was diagnosed by Dr. Andrew Gold, Columbia. He used to be a professor there. He was back in the 60s diagnosed as hyperactivity child, which is now considered ADHD. I mean, he actually, when he was younger, he was bitten on the head. I don't know. He was bitten by a dog. I don't know what, they don't know what causes these things, but whatever. He had some kind of head injury when he was younger. And my brother ended up, he was a nightmare to grow up with. I can tell you that as his sister, but he ended up.
Every brother and sister is. I had a sister like that.
He went to the Merchant Marine Academy and he ended up becoming one of the youngest captains. And then he took off, went to law school, passed the bar in New York and New Jersey. And he's now one of the youngest partners at Freehill, Hogan and Mahar, which is a law firm for maritime law in Manhattan. So that's why when my older son was diagnosed with ADHD, he had birth trauma. So I mean, I sound like I'm surrounded by special needs. I'm a very special person.
Wait a minute, you have special challenges.
I know, I did. Well,
but you have enough knowledge,
yes,
to help them overcome these disorders.
Well, that's what I actually with Dakota, like I kept him off of medications. Everybody wanted to medicate him, but I used a lot of strategies. I used, you and I were discussing working with your child. Like I made sure that, I had in his IEP that he would sit near the front of the room, near the teacher. And instead of the teacher constantly yelling at him, Dakota, slapping your hand on maybe just tap your hand on his desk. I also used, we were talking about nutrition, fish oils. So there was I looked for out of the box ways to try to help him. And both of my boys were both excellent students. My one son went to Clark Advanced Learning Center. The other one, Jensen Beach High School. They were both honors, so.
How old are they?
Now 22 and soon to be 24.
You must have had them when you were 3 years old.
22 and soon to be 24. I can't believe it. It's like time I wrote this book when The Late Talker, when Tanner was accepted into the Summit Speech School, which is a school for the hearing impaired in New Jersey, when he was 3 years old. And like, I'm looking at this and I'm supposed to be working on another book. Like, obviously this is like,
Was he hearing impaired as well?
no, but actually it ended up being a very good placement for children with apraxia. They found there's actually been a couple of different studies on it through different professionals from ASHA, that some of the strategies used for the hearing impaired population work well. I was in a segment for Inside Edition, and they talked about it on that too. That, you know, some of the same strategies that work for the hearing impaired population, that multi-sensory approach, seems to work well for children with apraxia. That, you know, when a child's very frustrated. Okay, wait, let me just take a break there. Helen Keller, when I first got the diagnosis of apraxia, probably a lot of people listening are like, what's that? Like, what's apraxia? So I'm from New Jersey, which is it's the state of sarcasm. So I said to the speech pathologist when she wrote down, you know, she says apraxia, dyspraxia, and the same thing. And I said, all right, so he's got this thing apraxia. He's still going to talk, right?
See, that's not a good term to use, because the A and the DYS.
I know. It means something different.
Is Latin meaning without.
Mm-hmm.
DYS means disorder of. So it should be dyspraxia,
right?
But then it's like aphasia.
I know it should be dyspraxia.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
So at least we clarified that.
No, you're absolutely right. And the name, it's so crazy because people don't even know what their child has, because there's so many names out there. It's, if your child has a motor planning disorder of speech, then it's apraxia, dyspraxia. Yeah.
It's like with stroke, you have aphasia. Well, Phagia is a Greek, from the Greek derivative of phagos, which means to speak. So you got aphasia without speech.
Right.
And you know, people say, well, why do you have all these terms? Well, all these terms mean something, and the derivation of the roots really give you, it's like the muscles of your body. I mean, it tells you where they are and where they go. When you say the sternocleidomastoideus, okay, it started in the sternum and ends up in the mastic portion of your brain. Most of your muscles relate to origin and insertion. You know, right. I mean, there's a simple. I mean, it's complicated, but there's a simple way of understanding these.
What's the other way of saying dysarthria? The dysarthria is the weakness of the muscles, because my son had that as well. So would that be asarthria?
You can do some really nice exercises for that.
Asarthria?
No, I don't know. I don't know of another term. It's
dysarthria. Yeah, okay. I was just wondering if there was another that I missed on that one.
Again, that's maybe me toward the articulation. Articulation. Because that's what dysarthria is.
Right.
It's a disorder of articulation.
It's a more consistent error, though, where apraxia or dyspraxia is a more inconsistent error. You know, so that's, you know, there's differences between, and sometimes these things coexist.
Well, I was talking about, you know, I mentioned that. All right, let's go back to the teaching thing, professor and teacher. When I went to the job, I was a professor. Oh, yeah, right. And I went to a special ed dinner one night, and they brought this world-class guy in to talk, young guy, really super knowledgeable. And they said, we're going to introduce Professor Jones. We grabbed the microphone. He said, wait a minute. I'm not a professor. I'm a teacher. He said, a professor professes what he knows. A teacher teaches what he knows. From that day on, I became a teacher. And if they call me professor, I said, no, I'm not a professor. I'm a teacher. I'd like to teach techniques, which is very unusual in a college classroom. You know, you can talk about all the different problems of the thing. We had an organics course that I taught, and we did cleft palate and all the physical things. And we talked about techniques and how to do it. Like a child who has a lisp, all right? Mm-hmm. They put their tongue out between their teeth when they say an S. Okay.
Right.
Simple technique is to just put your finger under their chin.
Like a touch cue.
Put your teeth together, now blow through it. Simple. I mean, there's those little cute things that work, you know, and we make things too complicated. Listen, there's nothing complex in this world. There's nothing complex. that machine there, that all the gadgets in it, that's not a complex machine. It's made up of all these little parts
Right.
that when you put them together, they look complex. If we broke them down to little parts, they're simple. That's how you troubleshoot things. You can take a meter and lay it one here and the wire in there. If the wire's frayed, you won't get a electrical transmission. You could tell where there's a broken wire.
I wish I would have known that technique when I was when my because my both boys had oral motor issues, and you know what I used to tell them? That your teeth are a cage and your tongue is a snake, and you have to keep the snake in the cage.
Well, there's another technique called a teeth crunch, teeth crunch or teeth crutch. You put your tongue up like you're going to say a T, but you say an S instead.
Okay.
Simple little. And then the other thing is like translating, and I was looking through there, translating or transitioning from sounds together to words. I had a cute little diagram thing we would do, and we would practice. Let's say we were working on the S sound. All right, we're just going to make that sound. So we did it like that. All right, now we're just going to put a vowel at the end of it. See, say, sigh, so, and sue. There's 5 words that we just said. 5 words we already practiced. We weren't practicing words, but my God, we already said words. If you put the S at the end, ace, ease is not. Ice is a word. Os is not, and oos is not. But you have 1 or 2 words in that combination, just with simple sounds and vowels together.
Right.
So you teach that child the meaning of these things. And it's almost like the water with Helen Keller. That suddenly she realized that there was meaning and there was an association. And a lot of times you see these kids, you see that look on their face. Oh my God.
Well,
I did that. Like I can do this.
And that's going back to the school where Tanner went, the school for the hearing impaired. I said, I'm like, if they can teach Helen Keller to speak, how can they not? Because when I asked the speech pathologist, he's still going to talk, right, about my son Tanner at 3 when he was diagnosed with apraxia. She didn't answer right away. And then when she did, she said, well, it depends. And I'm like, well, what is that supposed to mean? It depends. I mean, they taught Helen Keller to speak.
In other words, maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah. And I'm like, my son isn't deaf. I mean, how could they teach Helen Keller to speak?
See, I would have said, we are going to try to the death of me to get this kid to talk. We're going to do, and I would do this with parents. I would set them up. We'd have a session with a child. Okay. And let's say we had that TH for us. And I finally got him to say yes instead. Yes. Yes. Okay. I said, now let's set up mommy. We'd bring in mommy. And I'd say to her, I'm going to ask him a question and, let's see what his answer is. And I would say, oh, way, new way. Okay. The first way. Oh, wait. Are you a boy? Yes. Now let me do it the new way. Are you a boy? Yes. Oh my God. I said, now here's your job, Mom. I want you to practice this on the car on the way home with him. Get him in the car. Get that word going. Get that word going. Get that word going. I tried to transition because a lot of times,
you have to practice it.
Therapists treat families as if they're stupid. We're doing all this wonderful work in a clinical setting and say, okay, bring them back. We'll start it again. Now, what happens during that week of intervening?
Oh, you need homework. You need to be working.
Exactly. Yeah. And teach them what we were doing. We were engaging. I
used to observe everything that the SLP was doing. And I would when we had Toys R Us's, I used to wander the toy stores.
A lot of this is coming back to me.
I used to wander the toy stores looking for toys that I could use to help stimulate different sounds. One of the things I wanted to point out with apraxia, sometimes the consonant would change depending on the vowel that was before or after it.
Yeah.
So it would, if it was supposed to be a T, if it started with an F, they'd end with the F, or they would change it to another letter. It's a very frustrating
condition.
There's
a professor by the name of Gene McDonald developed a program called deep articulation testing. Normally, you took some pictures and you had the S in the beginning of a word, like sun. Mm-hmm. Then you had in the middle pencil, and then you had at the end bus. You showed these pictures to see what the child do. McDonald tested these in all kinds of environments with all kinds of combinations.
Okay.
See, most sounds, you either begin or end a word, and the rest are all blended together in the middle of a word. But you want to find out how they're doing in the middle.
Right.
So you might have an S and a B together. Now, S and B are not a word. I mean, well, how can you do an SB? Well, you could do a bus or a pass bus. There's an S and a B in there. Okay, so how well can you articulate? Because a lot of times we teach initial and final positions, and then the medial ones are tougher. Well, how do we blend sounds together? And he would do this whole diagnostic thing at the beginning to see where this child was, whether there was inconsistency or consistency. At what level could you begin to see a breakdown? That's where you started. You didn't start from scratch. I mean, it was a real clever way of doing that.
I want to write that down. After we're done, I want to write that down.
See, and there was another thing. At Indiana University, I had a brilliant man who was my mentor, and Robert Melassen, and he did some things differently with articulation, because he said the last thing you rely on is the factors of age and whatever. You look at the child and you test that child in different environments. Now, you might find that S sound, for instance, has some flexibility with certain combinations. Then as you go higher, you break down. Well, why start at the bottom teaching him the S sound? Because in these situations, he has already done it. So you can jump into that level. When all things fail, you look at developmental order, you look at age and maturation, you look at all those other peripheral things. Once you get by the mechanism that's producing it, that makes a lot of sense. I taught 1,000 students that technique because it made a lot more sense. You know, I mean, if you're a therapist, I'll give you an example. There's something with Parkinson's disease. There are two things. One's called it's LVST. The woman, LVST. LSVT, Lee Silverman voice training for Parkinson patients.
Okay.
Because they start getting very soft and they don't articulate very well loudly. So what she did was she taught him not to shout, but to speak very loudly for himself. And that very loudly for himself ended up being normal level to talk to people. So when he was thinking about wanting to talk to you, he almost shouted and it sounded normal. Well, then physical therapy that was called loud. Physical therapy picked this up for big movements, exaggerated movements. They have a shuffle gait, this little. They said, okay, now when you take a foot with your take a step with your right foot, throw your right foot out as hard as you can in front of you. Then throw your left foot out as hard as you can in front of you. And it emulated a normal walk. So when they were doing this large thing, they could walk and look normal. When they were doing the loud thing, they could almost shout and sound normal. Now, these are compensatory movements.
Yes, I don't really know anything. We mostly outreach to children.
Something like that makes them at least function in society as a more normal kind of person. I mean, to me, that's revolutionary. We're doing things to put them back into a normal mode. When I worked with people who stuttered, and I had a specialty for that. We ran a residential clinic every summer, and I called it the Island of Broken Toys from the Christmas special.
Right.
Because these people had therapy up the gazooby and they were severe. Nobody could help them and everything. Well, once we got them in a residential program and we did a particular kind of thing, almost miracles happened. They still stuttered, but when they didn't want to stutter, they didn't stutter. The techniques we taught them. And one kid said, "This is abnormal." And I said, "Sure it is." I said, "Let's say you crushed your ankle. And every time you take a step, your right foot crosses over and trips yourself. So I want you to pretend you're throwing your leg out to the right as hard as you can when you take a step. Normal step, normal step." I said, "Of course it's compensatory. Of course we're teaching you something abnormal. But if you stay on the abnormal, you will sound normal. You just have to focus on it. And it takes time to get that built into your system. Same with a child. We're teaching them things that they're not, it isn't comfortable for them. They didn't learn it up to that point, and they struggle with it, as you know. And it takes time, but it takes constant reminding kids, constant work, constant attention, constant engaging with your child.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a lot.
Think about what you went through with both of them.
With two.
Yeah. Right.
You're always in either therapy, on your way to therapy, doing therapy at home. I just wanted to say, even though with the Cherub Foundation, one of the things that one of our programs we're going to have in this community is we help children that are bullied and alienated who are neurologically on the neurological spectrum. They feel like the world hates them. Maybe they have no friends. And we throw community birthday parties. We had one here last year for William Morales, and it was over at Super Play. We're going to be having one for Chris Ramirez coming up in September, which I am going to get the date. We're still in the planning stages, but he's a 13 years old, and he has autism, anxiety, depression, and he's been bullied and alienated. So we're going to be throwing a community event. We work with the media, the first responders, and the community to throw these parties to make the child feel that they're not alone. And
now that you are in the senior networking group.
Yes, and I'm going to be sharing. Thank you so much for that. What a wonderful
It's
group.
a great group.
It really is.
I call it. Well, I can't say it on the air. It's a fun place. We smile when we left.
What a great group of people.
I know, and see what we're doing is actually we're shutting out the outside world, and we're creating a 1960s type of interaction where we're friendly with each other. We're not afraid. We're comfortable. I can sit with an associate or a rival, and everything's cool. We're not, fighting. They asked me to go down to West Palm Beach one time and start a group like that. I said, "Are you out of your mind? Those people don't communicate with each other." I say, I can't have dissension in a group. If they want to be part of a community, see, if I were to come to you and you had an office and I came to you and said, "I want to talk to you. Do you have some time?" First thing you're going to do is look at your watch. Yeah, I guess I do. If we'd had breakfast together and I walked in that room, what would you do? Into your office after we've had a breakfast a week or two ago, and you recognize me. Come on in.
Come on in.
Yeah,
right.
we take all the time we want. I hate cold calls because that's exactly what happens. There's another vendor coming in to bother me rather than a friend that I met. That's what I'm talking about a community. Now, because you're there, you will send me the flyer, and I will blast it out to the 700 people in this area. Now, they may not come, but there's an awareness that they pick up.
Oh, sure.
And that awareness helps a whole lot with a lot of
and
things.
also to let people know that if they have a child, grandchild, if they know somebody in that situation, to please let us know. Or if you have a child that you're concerned about with their communication skills, that's what we do is, we outreach, and we've been very successful.
See, if you were to send that to me in the email, just put the little statement, like one or two sentences, because I can put that in the blast also. I finally learned how to do it.
Okay.
I have a 10-page, well, this time a 10-page newsletter that I'm sending out, that I did send out actually. And I couldn't figure out how to get it into that system. I use GoDaddy because GoDaddy is my website, but they have a mail system, which is wonderful.
Oh, yes, they do.
Because it'll tell you who opened the emails. Somebody said, "I didn't get it." Well, your name is on the list. You did open it. Oh, okay.
They keep you honest.
I know. But, I'm sorry. You know what? We're chatting away. We were supposed to break 10 minutes ago to have a little commercial. Why don't we break right now and we'll come back? How's
Okay. That sounds great.
WSTU, we go back to the forum with your host, Pat Sacco.
Thank you, Mike. I'm here with Mrs. Gang.
Hello.
And who is the owner and CEO and chief bottle washer of a 501c3 agency called Cherub. Cherub.
And it's spelled Chera.
A rather than U.
A stands for autism, apraxia, or I guess it would be.
We're not going to put a D in there.
We're not going to put a D in there because that wouldn't work with a D.
Chebadoo.
Chebadoo.
It sounds like an Italian word. Chebadoo.
Mange.
Somebody says, "What do you mean?" Never heard that word before. I had a kind of a revolution when I went to Rome. First time I went to Rome.
What was that?
My family, all my aunts and uncles and grandparents spoke Italian. Okay. When I was a little kid, I was around them and they would say to me, go get the dishcloths, and I'd go get it. I understood them, but I couldn't speak it. I didn't, have the knowledge. And something about 50 some years later, I'm in Rome and we were going to take the train from Rome to Pisa, but you have to go to Florence and then to Pisa. You can't go directly. You can't get there from here. So I went to the train station, which is called the Stasi Termini, and Mussolini had built it. This is huge building with trains. And they took my train off because I had scheduled it from home. And it was supposedly a schedule, and that train was not running at that time. And my wife said, "Oh my God, what are we going to do?" I said, "Well, let me see." We couldn't find a person that spoke English in that station, that whole station. So I went up to a cage and I'm thinking, what do I say to this guy? And all of a sudden a couple of words came and I threw them out at him. And he said something back and I understood some of it too. And between the two of us, we made new reservations on the train. And she said, "How did you do that?" I said, "I don't know." And every day,
the brain is amazing.
Every day I was there, more words came to me. We were walking down the street and I turned to her and said, "I know what that couple just said." I said, I don't know why, but I understood that. And it was starting to come back, the recognition of something 50 years before. I'm saying, oh my God, this is.
Isn't that crazy?
But the cute thing was on that train, it was like what you'd see on TV, a little club car that you ride in on the train. And I smoked a pipe at the time. And I said to her, it was like a 3-hour ride. I said, "I'm going to go down to the club car and have a smoke." She said, "Okay." So go down there and there's a little club car and there's a little guy sitting in the corner selling stuff. And I didn't know where to smoke or the window or something. So I went up and I said to him, and I'm thinking, what do I say? I said, "Dove pozzo fumare." And he started laughing at me. And I said, "What?" And he said, in Italian, he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "America." And then in Italian, he said, "How come you have a Calabrese accent?" I said, "I don't have an accent." "Yes, I did, because my mother's family was from Calabria." Oh. And I learned a lot of language from them. So I picked up an accent, which I didn't know the countries had. But there's accents in Southern and Northern. I was working with 2 professors one time at the college. They were both from India. And their articulation skills were not good, and they wanted to speak a little more general English, general American English. So we were working on that, and I had them in together. And one day I said, "All right, I want you to speak Hindi to each other. I just want to hear the flow of this." So they were talking. Once the guy started laughing. I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "He's got a Southern accent." I said, "He doesn't have No, he had a Southern Indian accent. And he was from the North, and he found it amusing how he distorted the language. So there are regionalisms all over the world. Look at England. They speak English and Cockney. Well, Cockney, you can almost...
That's the slang.
That's slang, but you can almost not understand it. I mean, it's so slang,
Right.
So I didn't realize all these differences were out there. It's amazing what our brain...
even in the U.S., we have...
Yeah.
I mean, I know people tell me I have, especially when I say chocolate or coffee, I have an accent because...
No, you have a regionalism.
Regionalism. Okay. Right. All right.
It's like you learn something new. You talk to people from Boston.
Car.
Yeah, my car. What do you mean car? CA? No, there's an R in there.
I have an interesting one for you. My son Tanner, when he was little, we taught him simple sign.
Tanner, that's a nice name.
That's my son that has apraxia. Right. We taught him simple sign. So not any like American Sign Language, which also apparently, depending on which country you're from, there's regional aspects.
Around the country, there are regional signs too. National Technical Institute for the Deaf is at the RIT campus in Rochester. It's a
Okay.
federally funded program. They bring in kids from California and from Arizona, and a lot of their signs are different.
Right,
They have to learn
right.
each other's signs.
Well, what happened when he was little, we just taught him simple sign, like eat, drink, I'm doing the signs, but I know nobody could see it. But anyway, they're just baby signs, simple sign. And when he went to Jensen Beach High School, he ended up taking sign language, and he got approved for the college level sign language, which was, he had to get approved for it. And he picked it up, and he said he remembers when he used to talk with his hands as a child, but it was like, he used to come home and try to do all the sign language with me and my husband. We had no idea what he was saying.
Well, so when you do this, that's coffee.
Yeah, but he would do like
I would see somebody across the
conversations.
room and I'd go like this and say, yeah, I'm simple signs that we know maybe we use that don't think about the using as a sign.
But it's because when you're a young child and you pick up a language as a young child, like that's the best time to learn a language when you're little.
Really feel badly. I wish my parents had taught me Italian when I learned how to speak, and then learned to speak English as a second language. My father believed in this country. My God, he was a fanatic about being an American, and we didn't talk. And he and my mother would go in a corner and talk in Italian. They wouldn't talk in front of us. They didn't want us to learn Italian. They wanted us to be American, full blown, full bar.
Yeah, same with me.
I wish I'd had that to begin with, because it's always easier to pick up a second language. It's really hard to learn the older
later
you are.
On.
When you're older than dirt, it's hard to learn new languages.
It really is. And
but see, that's one of the ways we can keep our brain healthy and active. The older you get, you have to challenge your brain, not just reading. Reading is okay. Crossword puzzles are okay, but you have to take on a task, like learn Chinese, learn how to play chess, learn something complicated that you really have to struggle with. That keeps your mind really well-oiled.
Chinese is like one of the harder ones, like Italian, Spanish. Those are easier.
I know, but it's really hard, challenging.
Right.
Let's say you did learn Spanish. Okay, now take on another language.
Okay.
Because a lot of things within Italian or Spanish, those are the Romance languages. There's a lot of roots to other languages, even to French.
Right.
Because they're called the Romance languages. The roots are and Greek, the same kind of thing.
And then there's different there's different types of Chinese too.
Oh, yeah. And there's regionalisms there too.
Yes.
Or accents or whatever you want to call them.
Mandarin and
Szechuan, Mandarin, Hunan is. They're not items on a Chinese menu. These are provinces in China.
Oh, I know. There's
You might say Hunan is hot stuff over there.
My nephew actually, that was his major, was or that was one of the things he went to China because he went into business to learn Chinese. And I even just thinking about learning Chinese, it's like if you didn't learn English, think about learning English now with the amount of slang we have, the things that we just take for granted that we know. Somebody knows the words that have so many meanings, the same word.
Well, that's one of the things that we did as a profession in speech and language pathology, was to teach people general American English. There was a movement in the late 20s, early 30s. They were hiring primarily blacks in New York City as telephone operators. And they had to teach them general American phrases to say in their microphones. They don't say, "Hey, what's up? May I help you?" I mean, they didn't say that in their environment. They had to learn the phrases to sound like general American English.
This was back in the
late 30s, early 40s.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Now we have a problem. We don't have a problem, but sometimes I get a little frustrated if I call someone and I hear, "Oh, my name is Bruce." Well, no, it's not Bruce, and you're calling from New Delhi.
Right.
On the thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have a hard time listening to them because they speak so rapidly in their English. I say, and I lie, I say, "I'm hearing impaired. Please slow down," because I'm missing what they're saying.
That's a good thing to say.
Rather than yelling, "Don't talk like that." No, just kill them with kindness.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it's a lot of people are hearing impaired. So.
Yeah. Well, again, if somebody's talking really rapidly, they say, "You want to wait a minute, let me give me some time to process what you're saying here."
But I have an example, like when my son Tanner came home from school once, he was so frustrated with his workbook, he threw it on the ground and he said, same thing, stupid, there, there, there. You know how in school they teach the children the difference between over there, this is their toy, and they are.
T-H-E-R, T-H-E-R-E, right,
Mhm.
right. Well, English is a screwed up language.
Well, that's what I meant. Like it's
Yeah, it is.
confusing for,
I have a little thing. I write G-H-O-T-I on the board and say, what is that word? Somebody's Godi, Getty. No. I said, let me give you a hint. And I underlined the G-H and they said, that's in the word enough. So what is it now? Oh, 40? No. So I put that down and say, well, the O is like the word women. Oh, so it's fitty. No. Let me give you the last one. The SH is like the word, TI is like in the word action. OSH. Yes. Now that word is fish. So GHOTI spells fish.
Oh, wow.
The way phonetically we say it, with some of the distortions, there's no reason why a GH is an F. How did they come up with that?
I have
How
no
did they
idea.
come up with
You're
all of
asking the
these-
wrong person
No, I mean,
here.
so the English
think
is not
it's
a
crazy.
simple language because there are all these derivations. My son took 5 years of Spanish in high school. He minored in Spanish in college. And then he went on while he was teaching in Charlotte. He went to University of North Carolina in Charlotte and got a bachelor's degree in Spanish. And he said, Dad, he said, I took a course called Exceptions to Spanish Grammar. It was a whole college course in exceptions to Spanish grammar. I said, the whole course? About 16 weeks? He said, yep. How many exceptions are there to Spanish grammar? I mean, that was mind-blowing to me. I mean, yeah. Yeah, we think English is
You know what
tough.
it is? A lot of it, and this is when my son got frustrated, I said to him, I didn't disagree with him. I agreed. I said, you're right. It is stupid. But you know what? The one thing you don't have to do, you have an amazing memory. I have found a lot of these kids that are late to talk, they have really good recall. And I used to work in toy design, and I've noticed that they remember things like that other.
They're auditory learners
They
or visual learners.
They
Somehow
just remember.
Yeah.
And I said to him, you don't have to learn it like the other kids. All you have to do is remember. And at that point, I just told him what the teacher tells him. When you see this, it means this. When you see this, it means this. He never got it wrong again. But that's all it is.
Why didn't they teach him that way?
I don't know, but
Give 'em a
that's all it is. It's
simple-
memorization.
Yeah, a simple thing. If I teach you something simple, you're going to remember it. If it's poignant to you, you're going to remember it. If it doesn't mean much to you, you're not going to remember it. You know? I mean, we're talking about, I talked about that tea crutch. You know, if you thought I'm going to remember that. It's a simple way of doing something like
Yeah.
that. Well, there's certain techniques you'll learn when you're out there practicing.
That was a
There's
great technique.
There's a library in Rochester, big cement, not cement, but block building, beautiful
Okay.
structure.
Mhm.
And there's engraved on the top in the stone, it says, education is not a preparation for life, it is life itself. You don't have to go to college to learn. You don't have to do all these things to be smart. If you have an inquisitive mind, you can learn things, you know. Yeah, it's easier to take a college course. I struggled with photography for 3 years. I was getting pretty good at it. My wife took a college course. She was light years ahead of me because she took the course and it was all structured. But I had to do that by myself. But we ended up, still taking good pictures. You can learn things. You don't have to go through a formal training. And I believe, and I hear some politicians talking about not everybody should go to college. And I fully agree with that. We need trade schools. You can be a plumber. You can be an electrician. You can be a carpenter and still make $200,000 a year.
Who is the
More than a doctor said, they're earning more than I am.
Who is the guy that Dirty Jobs, and he actually talks about that, like how we really don't talk about that there's no, they are great jobs to have. I'm drawing a blank. I can't think of his name.
Micro.
Yeah.
There you go. Micro.
Yeah, he's got posters and everything. Exactly.
He's little,
what
Micro.
You just said.
Yeah. No, he's a big guy.
Yeah, but he actually, my kids used to love his show. He had a
See?
great show.
Just think of the joy somebody gets of redesigning a kitchen. and putting in marble and making it look beautiful and walking off the job saying, yep, another one done, never go see it again. But that was the pride in getting that together. That's really great reinforcement for a good, your father does physical things.
I've done projects where you don't necessarily have a physical product at the end, or you work all these years and you get one little thing to show for it. And then I switched from that to working in a machine shop where you make all these products. And at the end of the day, you turn around, you've 15 parts that you made that day. And there's a difference. There is a feeling there.
And there's a pride. And I made it, and it's going to work, and it's going to fit in. These guys that work at Piper up in Vero, we had a health fair there, and I was talking to some of them. God, they're talented people. One guy makes little parts for a new wing design. And the part is to be able to turn and fix something in that wing. He had to create a special part for that. And that's what these guys do. Unbelievable. I mean, that's really significant. We're almost done.
Oh, okay.
Come on, this real slow.
It went very quickly for me.
Plug your book here.
Okay. Well, I co-authored the book, The Late Talker. And one of my children's neurodevelopmental pediatricians is one of my co-authors. My son's story was in another book called The LCP Solution. So Malcolm Nickel, who's another co-author, he's an international journalist. He's another co-author.
All right. The name is The Late Talker, and you get that on Amazon.com.
Yes. What to do if your child isn't talking yet. And again, I run the Cherub Foundation. We have a documentary film, latetalkersfilm.com.
And a phone number to reach you.
772-919-1417.
Again.
772-919-1417.
Boy, I'm directed right now.
Yeah, you're good. You know what you're doing.
Well, I'm not sure
You're a
about
teacher.
that.
I can't say professor. You're a teacher.
I hide it very well, yes.
SLP.
Okay, and again, thank you very much for being here, Lisa. We thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And we'll see you again next month at Senior Networking Breakfast. And then we will be back
so much for having me
for another wonderful guest on The Forum.